because I'm sharing the PDF. Okay, now this is the poem Childhood, which gives the thoughts, which gives us about what's going on in the child's mind. The child is wondering that when his childhood disappeared. The child is now perhaps a grown-up lad, right? And he's wondering that when the childhood disappeared, when it skipped away, when it slipped away, he was not aware of it. Gradually, over the years, as and when the child grows up, the childhood, he's leaving behind the childhood and he's entering into maturity. From infancy to a toddler, from a toddler to a child, from the stage of childhood to adolescence maybe, and then from adolescence to maturity, to an adult, right? Apart from their physical changes in the child, and there are a lot of emotional, mental, and social changes also, right? So the first stanza, the poet says, "When did my childhood go? So was it the day when I ceased here," means stopped, when he finished his 11 years of age, right? Was it that day when his childhood was gone? Was it the time I realized that hell and heaven could not be found in geography? He said, or was it that day when he understood that hell and heaven, they're a part of our belief system, right? We believe there is something known as hell, which is below the earth, and there is something known as heaven, which is up in the sky. But actually, in that geographical sense, it's not there. You cannot find them in geography. You cannot find them in any of the maps. And therefore, could not be, was that the day? So he said, because hell and heaven could not be found in geography, so and therefore they could not be. So when I realized that, was that the day when I stopped being a child and I became a matured adult, right? So I'm repeating the first stanza again. When did my childhood go? So here the poet is wondering when his childhood had finished. He says that was it the day when he stopped being 11, when he finished his 11 years of age? Was that the day when the childhood had skipped away? Or was it the time when you realized that hell and heaven are nowhere in the geography, so they could not be there? They're just what we believe, right? So he says, was that the day when I stopped being a child and I grew into a matured person? Now, the second stanza. I want Ankita, please read out the second stanza. Ankita, can you hear me?
Ma'am,
Okay.
she got
Sakshan.
disconnected.
Okay, Sakshan, please you read out the second stanza.
When did my childhood go? Was it the time I realized that adults were not all they seemed to be? They talked of love and preached of love, but did not act so lovingly. Was that the day?
So the next is, he says, when did my childhood go? Was it the time I realized that adults were not all they seem to be? He said that was it that the time that when he realized that adults, they were not the same they seem to be. That is something, a chief characteristic of adulthood. You will find most of the adults, they pretend to be something else, but actually they are something else. We adults are somewhere, we are very diplomatic in our talks, in our looks, right? People are not, we cannot judge people today by what they seem to be from their outer appearance. They might be something very different, right? So he says, when did that my childhood go? Was it the time when the child realized that adults were not all they seem to be? What they look like, what they seem to be, they were not the same. So when he as a person, the poet as a person understood this fact, was that the time when his childhood had passed away? They talked of love and preached of love. That's very true. Elders talk of love and they preach of love. Most of the elders would be giving these lessons to all the children. As a parent, as a teacher, as a guide, as a mentor, you'll always find elders giving these lectures, right? You should live in unity, brotherhood, harmony, and love should be there. We should not fight amongst each other. We should share our things. But actually, do they follow the same principles? So he said, was it that day when I realized that they talked of love and they preached of love, but they didn't not act so lovingly, but they themselves did not act that lovingly. Was that the day when the childhood had passed away? Please continue further. Is Riddhi there?
Yes, ma'am.
Riddhi, please read out the third stanza.
When did my childhood go? Was it when I found my mind was really mine, to use whichever way I choose, producing thoughts that were not those of other people, but my own and mine alone? Was that the day?
Okay, now this is something very common. When a child when a child grows up, when a child is growing, there are a lot of, apart from the physical changes, the height, the weight, the body parts, there are a lot of mental, emotional, and social changes also. When the child is small, he follows all the instructions given by his elders, right? Do this, don't do this, follow this. I mean, he is instructed every time. So he is often given these instructions. He is often given these kind of instructions by the elders. But when the child grows up, when he's growing, in that growing age, the child starts taking up certain decisions. He understands there are certain calls which he has to take up on his own, and he has his own brain. He has his own thoughts. At your age, when you are now at this stage, you realize that you have your own perspective. Your thought process is entirely yours, might be entirely different from your friends, or yours might be entirely different from your parents, right, or from your grandparents. So everybody has their own way of thinking, everybody has their own notions about things, about topics, and their own perspectives, right? So the poet here says that when did my childhood go? Was it when I found that my mind was really mine, that I have my own mind, I have my own brain, I think in my own manner, and to use whichever way I choose. Whichever way I choose, I can use it in my own way, producing thoughts that were not those of other people. So he said, I produce thoughts which are not those of other people, but my own are mine. But my own and mine alone. So again, when he's talking about his views, his opinion, his notions, or his perspectives about certain things, about topics or instances or situations, right? So he said, was that the day when I realized this thing? That was that the day when I was grown up and my childhood had passed away. Let's move on further. Akshita is there.
Yes, ma'am.
Akshita, please read out the last stanza here.
Where did my childhood go? It went to some forgotten place that is hidden in an infant face. That's all I know.
Okay, now throughout the poem, you will find the poet is questioning himself, perhaps, where the childhood go. So he is talking, was that the day my childhood had passed away? Now, in the last stanza, he is giving the answer himself. What he's saying is, he says, where did my childhood go? It went to some forgotten place. So to some forgotten place, the childhood has gone, right? That is hidden. Now where is this forgotten place? This forgotten place, it is hidden in an infant's face. So he says that it went to some forgotten place that is hidden in an infant's face. Now each one of us, we know how a child, when in its stage of infancy, the child looks like. The charm of infancy is there, that innocence is very much there, right? The beauty of a child cannot be matched actually to a beauty of an adult. And if you yourself, if you look at your pictures when you were a child, you will notice something. You will see that your face was very charming, it was very innocent when you were an infant. Where has that innocence gone? See, because actually it is like the way we think, the thoughts, the opinions, the way our head and heart work, it all comes on our face. If you're angry all the time, that anger is also on our face. The agony of the misery of the people who are actually leading a life of that sort, that is also quite visible on the face. And the people who are generally cheerful, right? You will find that smiling, giggling look on their face every time. I remember last to last year there was a guy in my class who always had that smile on his face, who always had that smile on his face, and the entire class used to call him Doraemon. The only reason for that was that he always used to be in that cheerful mood and that smile. I asked him that why every time when I'm teaching, you are smiling. So he said, no ma'am, I'm not smiling. It's like my face is that way zone. Okay, so this is somewhere the context here is. Here it is clearly mentioned, where did my childhood go? It went to some forgotten place that is hidden in an infant's face. So the poet here comes to the point that perhaps my childhood has gone to a place which is hidden in the innocence, the charm, and the beauty which is there on an infant's face. He says, that's all I know. That's all I know, that where my childhood has gone. Rest I don't know. So childhood, again, perhaps what directly or indirectly the poet is referring here, it is that golden period of a man's life which one relishes. The memories of the childhood we relish throughout our life, right? Now you people are into this age of, you are a teenager, so you recall those days when you were very small, when you were perhaps a kindergarten child, and you used to come to school crawling, uh, creepily, not happily coming to school, right? But then those memories were also, they are also wonderful for you. You remember how you used to you know behave with your parents, how you used to be with your friends, and how teachers used to scold you, but you love those memories, right? So in a way, the poet here is also nostalgic about his childhood days, the memories, uh, the beauty of those, that age. He relishes through these memories, but still we find him nostalgic here, and we find he is somewhere reminiscing that where the childhood has skipped, how it skipped away, where it has gone, he is not aware of it. And he says, when did it go? Was it the day when I understood that hell and heaven are not there in geography? Was it the day when I realized that elders are not actually the way they seem to be? Was it the day when I realized that they preached of love, but they themselves do not love, they do not behave in that manner? So at the end, he himself gives us a illusion that perhaps my childhood has escaped to an unforgotten place, and which is there on the face of an infant. Right? Am I clear with the poem? I think we can give a pause here.